The crescent-shaped birthmark glowed softly on Emma's delicate skin, like a secret about to be revealed. Sarah let the towel fall to the bathroom floor, her hands trembling as she stared at the small scar on the neck of the 8-year-old girl who, just 2 weeks ago, they had brought home as their daughter. A mark identical to the one her husband Thomas had carried since birth. At that moment, the world seemed to slow down. The sound of running water from the bathtub mixed with the rapid beating of her heart as her mind tried to process the impossible. The words of the social worker still echoed in her memory. The biological mother preferred to remain anonymous. Now, Sarah wondered how many other secrets that anonymity concealed. 2 weeks earlier, when they arrived at St. Mary's Orphanage, Sarah and Thomas were just another couple defeated by years of failed attempts to have a child. The old mansion, with its exposed brick walls and Victorian windows, held dozens of stories of loss and new beginnings. But none of them could have prepared them for what was to come. Emma captivated them from the first moment. Sitting on the windowsill of the library, hugging a worn copy of The Little Prince, she raised her deep brown eyes, the same eyes as Thomas, Sarah now realized with painful clarity. The girl had a unique way of smiling, as if she held a sweet secret known only to her. Thomas was particularly enchanted, often commenting on how she reminded him of someone, though he couldn't pinpoint who. The decision to adopt her was instantaneous, born from that inexplicable connection that fate sometimes weaves with invisible threads. The first days were an explosion of joy, decorating the room with shades of lavender and yellow, choosing new dresses, discovering each other's little quirks and preferences. Emma loved when Sarah braided her hair before bed, and Thomas spent hours reading stories to her, their voices blending into laughter that filled the once silent house. But now, faced with that familiar mark, Sarah felt the weight of an unspoken truth. Her hands still trembled as she helped Emma dress after the bath, trying to maintain composure while her mind whirled with a storm of questions. How would she confront Thomas? How could she protect Emma from the approaching storm? In the living room, Thomas was organizing some old photographs he intended to show Emma, part of the effort to build a family story with their daughter. Sarah could hear his voice humming distractedly, unaware of the discovery that was about to change their lives forever. Among the photos scattered on the coffee table, one in particular caught Sarah's attention. Thomas, younger, embracing a woman with hair. Dark hair and a melancholic smile. On the back, a date from 9 years ago and a name that made her heart clench. Rachel. Emma, already dressed in her favorite unicorn pajamas, ran to the living room, eager to see the photos her father had promised to show. Sarah followed, each step feeling as heavy as lead. She watched as the girl snuggled into Thomas's lap, her still damp hair leaving a dark spot on his shirt. The birthmark, now partially visible, seemed to pulse with the weight of its secret. "Daddy, who is this lady in the picture?" Emma's innocent voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. Thomas froze, his eyes meeting Sarah's in a moment of devastating understanding. The secret that the birthmark held was about to come to light, threatening to destroy the fragile happiness they had built. The silence that followed Emma's innocent question hung heavily in the living room. Thomas held the photograph with trembling fingers, his pale face reflecting the whirlwind of emotions consuming him inside. Sarah remained still, watching her husband wrestle with the words that could destroy everything they had built. "She's an old friend, sweetheart," Thomas finally replied, his voice betraying the effort to keep his composure. Emma, still nestled in his lap, frowned as she sensed the tension in the air. Her small fingers touched the photo delicately, tracing the contours of Rachel's face. "She has a pretty smile, just like mine," Emma commented with the innocence of her 8 years. Sarah felt her heart tighten. The resemblance was undeniable, the same gentle smile, the same way of slightly tilting her head. Details that once seemed coincidental now screamed a truth that could no longer be ignored. That night, after Emma fell asleep clutching her favorite teddy bear, Sarah and Thomas met in the kitchen. The aroma of chamomile tea failed to ease the tension lingering between them. The steaming cups served as anchors for hands that didn't know what to do with the weight of the truth. "How long were you and Rachel together?" Sarah asked, her voice barely containing the tremor of suppressed tears. Thomas buried his face in his hands, his shoulders heavy with the burden of secrets kept for so long. 2 years, he replied, the words coming out like painful confessions. "It was before I met you. We broke up, it was complicated. Rachel had different dreams, wanted to travel, build a career. I wanted stability, a family." He paused, swallowing hard. "She left without warning, Sarah. Just disappeared." Sarah set her cup on the table with excessive care, as if the slightest sudden movement could shatter not just the porcelain but their entire reality. "The birthmark, Thomas. Emma has the same mark as you? Thomas's breathing grew heavier. His hands, always steady and sure, now trembled visibly. 9 years ago, he murmured, calculating mentally. When Rachel left, she could have been pregnant, Sarah finished, the word falling between them like a verdict. Emma is your biological daughter, Thomas. Rachel gave her up for adoption without telling you? The silence that followed was interrupted only by the ticking of the kitchen clock, marking the seconds of a life that would never be the same. Through the slightly open door to the bedroom, they could hear Emma's gentle breathing, unaware of the emotional earthquake shaking the foundations of her new family. "What are we going to do?" Sarah asked, her voice almost a whisper. There was no anger in her words, only a deep sadness and fear of the unknown. Thomas lifted his eyes, meeting his wife's gaze. At that moment he saw not just the woman he loved, but also the mother Emma had chosen to have. "We need to find Rachel," he replied, the decision forming in his voice. "Emma deserves to know the truth, but we need to do it the right way. She's already lost one family. I can't let her lose another." Sarah rose, walking to the kitchen window. The night was clear, the crescent moon, ironically in the shape of a half-moon, shining in the starry sky. Somewhere in the city, Rachel carried with her the answers to questions they barely knew how to formulate. The challenge would not just to find her but to deal with the consequences that this search would bring for everyone involved. One afternoon, while making chocolate cookies in the kitchen, Emma asked, "Mommy, why are you sad?" The question caught Sarah off guard, making her heart skip a beat. The girl had a unique sensitivity to perceive others' emotions. "I'm not sad, darling," Sarah tried to smile, mechanically spreading flour over the dough. "Just thoughtful." Emma stopped cutting the star-shaped cookies, her brown eyes fixed on Sarah. "When I lived at the orphanage, Mrs. Margaret used to say that sometimes people keep sadness inside them like they keep sugar in closed jars. But it's better when you open the jar and share it with someone." The simple and profound words of the girl made the tears that Sarah had been holding back finally flow freely. Emma put down the cookie cutter and hugged her mother, her small flour-stained hands leaving white marks on Sarah's apron. That same night, Thomas came home carrying an old folder. His eyes shone with a mix of hope and apprehension. "I found something," he said after Emma had gone to bed. "Rachel had a sister, Catherine. She still lives in the city. Maybe she knows where we can find Rachel." Sarah sat next to her husband on the couch, taking his hands in hers. "Thomas, before we continue this search, we need to think about Emma. How are we going to tell her? How will we protect her if Rachel doesn't want to meet her?" Thomas completed, his low voice revealing the fear that consumed him as well. "Or worse, if she wants to take her away from us?" The silence that followed carried the weight of all the possibilities that terrified them. In the next room, they could hear Emma quietly talking to her stuffed animals, creating magical stories before bed, a routine that had become precious to all of them. "We can't lose Emma," Sarah finally said, her voice firm despite the tears. "She's already our daughter, Thomas. In heart, in soul, in every moment we've shared. No DNA test can change that." Thomas embraced his wife, feeling the tremor that ran through her body. "I'll talk to Catherine tomorrow," he whispered. "But I promise we'll do this the right way. Emma deserves to know her origins, but she also deserves to keep the family she chose." That night, as they did every night since Emma arrived, they went to her room to give her a goodnight kiss. The girl slept peacefully, clutching her teddy bear, a slight smile on her lips. The birthmark on her neck, now so laden with meaning, glowed softly under the lamp's light. Sarah adjusted the blanket over Emma, her fingers gently caressing the girl's hair. Thomas stood in the doorway, watching the intimate moment between mother and daughter. In his heart, a certainty grew. No matter what they discovered about the past, the love they had built was real and unbreakable. The cafe where Thomas arranged to meet Catherine had a sweet aroma of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. Sitting by the window, a woman with dark hair tied in a messy bun stirred her cup distractedly. The same nervous habit as Rachel, Thomas thought, feeling his heart tighten with the memory. "I knew one day you'd come looking for me," Catherine said as soon as Thomas approached. Her voice carried the weight of a long-kept secret. "When I heard about Emma's adoption, I wondered how long it would take for you to realize." Thomas felt his hands tremble as he held the cup of coffee. "You knew all along? You knew Emma was my daughter?" Catherine lowered her eyes, watching the patterns the spoon made in the coffee. "Rachel made me promise to keep it a secret. She was hurt, Thomas. Seeing you move on, marry Sarah, it was too much for her." The words hit Thomas like a punch in the stomach. "She had no right to hide that from me. Emma is my daughter. I could have been there from the beginning." Rachel discovered the pregnancy 2 weeks after leaving, Catherine continued, her voice soft but firm. She had just gotten that dream job in another city. When she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. She tried to call you several times, but I was already with Sarah, Thomas completed, the guilt weighing on his chest. Where is she now, Catherine? I need to find her. Emma deserves to know her biological mother. Catherine took an envelope from her bag, her hands trembling slightly. Rachel lives on the coast now. She has a small bookstore just like she always dreamed. Catherine paused, choosing her words carefully. She never forgave herself for leaving Emma. But she believed she was doing the best for everyone. At home, Sarah played with Emma in the garden, trying to maintain the normalcy of their days while her heart tightened with worry. The girl picked flowers to make a crown, her laughter filling the afternoon air with a joy Sarah feared she might lose. Mommy, look what I found. Emma ran up to her, holding something in her hands. It was a small blue butterfly, its wings shimmering in the afternoon sun. It looks hurt. Sarah knelt beside her daughter, observing the tiny creature. Sometimes, dear, the most fragile things are also the strongest. Shall we help it fly again? Together, they created a small shelter with leaves and flowers, caring for the butterfly until it regained its strength. Emma watched attentively, her eyes shining with a compassion that made Sarah's heart overflow with love. When Thomas arrived home that night, he found Sarah in the kitchen. The smell of hot chocolate filled the air, her way of coping with anxiety. I found Rachel, he said simply, sitting at the table. Sarah stopped stirring the chocolate, her hands gripping the spoon tightly. And now? She wants to meet us. All of us. Thomas pulled out the envelope Catherine had given him, revealing a recent photo of Rachel in front of a small seaside bookstore. She has the right to explain, Sarah. And Emma has the right to know. In the next room, Emma hummed softly as she drew. In her drawing, a family of 4 smiled under a sky full of blue butterflies, as if her heart already knew there was room for more love in her story. The small seaside bookstore had shelves reaching up to the ceiling and a gentle aroma of old books mixed with coffee. Rachel was behind the counter when they entered, her fingers nervously playing with the pages of a worn book. Time had changed her features, but her gaze still carried that unique blend of strength and vulnerability that Thomas remembered so well. Emma held tightly to Sarah and Thomas's hands, her steps hesitant as she took in the new environment. The doorbell still jingled softly when Rachel looked up, first meeting Thomas's gaze, then Sarah's, and finally resting on Emma. Her hands visibly trembled, and the book she was holding fell onto the counter with a dull thud. "Hi, Rachel," Thomas said gently, his voice laden with 9 years of unasked questions. Rachel stepped out from behind the counter, her legs seeming to falter with each step. She stopped a few meters away, her eyes fixed on Emma, drinking in every detail of the daughter's face she hadn't seen since her birth. "She has your smile," she whispered, tears beginning to stream down her face. Emma looked up, first at Sarah, then at Thomas, seeking reassurance in their familiar faces. Sarah gently squeezed her hand, conveying strength through the touch. "Emma," Thomas knelt beside his daughter, his voice gentle but firm. "Remember when we talked about different types of families? About how some children have more than one mom or dad who loves them?" Emma nodded, her curious eyes shifting between the adults. "Like Jenny in my class? She has 2 dads and 2 moms." "Yes, dear," Sarah joined them, forming a small circle of protection around Emma. "Rachel is your biological mother. She carried you in her belly, just as she carries the same love for you that we have." Rachel took another step forward, her hands trembling at her sides. "I thought about you every day," her voice was barely a whisper. "Every birthday, every Christmas. I kept gifts for you, letters I never had the courage to send." Emma released her adoptive parents' hands and took a small step toward Rachel. Her eyes studied the woman's face with surprising intensity for someone so young. "You have the same eye color as me," she observed with the simplicity typical of childhood. Rachel let out a soft sob, falling to her knees to be at Emma's level. "Yes, we have the same eyes. And the same love for books, from what Thomas told me." Sarah watched the scene with a tight heart, feeling Thomas's arm wrap around her shoulders in a comforting gesture. The fear of losing Emma was still there, but something new was beginning to grow, a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to love. "Why did you leave me?" Emma's question, direct and honest, made time stand still in the little bookstore. Rachel took a deep breath, seeking courage from the depths of her soul. "Because I was scared, dear. Sometimes, when we're afraid, we make decisions that hurt the people we love. But not a day goes by that I don't regret not being brave enough to stay." Emma was silent for a moment, processing the words with wisdom beyond her years. Then, to everyone's surprise, she took another step forward and touched Rachel's face with her small hand. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. Now I have 3 people to love me." Tears ran freely down Rachel's face as Sarah and Thomas stepped closer, completing the circle. In that moment, among old books and untold stories, a new story was beginning to be written. A story about forgiveness, courage, and the transformative power of true love. The days following the meeting at the bookstore brought subtle changes to everyone's lives. Emma began dividing her weekends between the cozy home of Sarah and Thomas and the little seaside bookstore where Rachel created magical worlds among the pages of old books. Every moment shared felt like a small miracle, filling voids none of them knew existed. Sarah watched the silent transformation happening in her family. On one particular afternoon, as Emma and Rachel organized books on the shelves, sorting them by colors and themes, she noticed something extraordinary. She wasn't losing a daughter. She was gaining an ally in the unconditional love for Emma. "She has your way with books," Sarah commented to Rachel as they watched Emma create little stories for each volume she organized. "I always wondered where that love for reading came from." Rachel smiled, her hands busy with a stack of novels. "And she has your gentle heart, Sarah. The way she cares for others, how she notices when someone is sad. That came from you." Thomas found the 3 of them laughing together at the end of that afternoon, Emma at the center of the circle, telling an elaborate story about a princess who had 3 kingdoms to rule. His heart filled with a joy he had never imagined possible. The initial fear that this truth would destroy his family had transformed into something entirely different, an expansion of the love they shared. At home, Emma started creating a special album. "It's my family book," she explained as she glued photos and wrote little captions in her childlike handwriting. "Here is Mommy Sarah making cookies with me. This is Mommy Rachel showing me her favorite books. And this is Daddy Thomas taking us for ice cream." One night, while Emma slept, the 3 adults gathered on the porch of Sarah and Thomas's house. The soft sound of the waves in the distance created a perfect melody for the confessions that needed to be made. "I always imagined this day would be different," Rachel admitted, her hands holding a cup of tea. "I thought there would be anger, resentment. I never imagined I would find forgiveness, or friendship." Sarah reached out, gently touching Rachel's arm. "Love doesn't decrease when it's shared, it multiplies. Emma taught us that." Thomas watched the 2 women who meant so much in his life, the wife he had chosen to share his days with and his first love who had given him the most precious gift. "We're a different family," he said. "But maybe it's exactly the kind of family Emma needed." A small noise caught the attention of the 3. Emma was standing at the door of the porch, hugging her teddy bear, her eyes sleepy but bright. "I had a beautiful dream," she said, walking toward them. "I dreamed I had a giant heart, so big that everyone I love could fit inside it." Rachel picked her up, and Emma naturally extended her arms to include Sarah in the hug. Thomas completed the circle, enveloping his expanded family in a moment of pure connection. The stars shone in the night sky, silent witnesses to a love that transcended conventions and expectations. A year had passed since that first visit to the seaside bookstore. Time, gentle in its wisdom, had woven new bonds between hearts once separated by secrets and fears. The small family born from love and forgiveness grew stronger each day, like a tree that had finally found fertile soil for its roots. Emma was turning 9, and her birthday party transformed Rachel's bookstore into a magical world of stories. Colorful balloons danced among the old shelves, and the scent of chocolate and cinnamon filled the air. Sarah had spent the entire morning preparing Emma's favorite treats while Rachel decorated every corner with little lights that made the books glow like treasures. "Look what I found," Thomas said, arriving with a dusty box in his arms. Inside were dozens of yellowed letters, all written by Rachel to Emma over the years, each marking a special moment she dreamed of sharing with her daughter. Emma sat on the soft rug between her 2 mothers, opening each envelope with careful reverence. Rachel's words, written with so much love and longing, were now a precious gift, not a painful secret anymore but a bridge between past and present. "Dear Emma," Sarah read aloud one of the letters, her soft voice filling the bookstore. "Today you would be 5 years old. I imagine your smile, your first days of school, the stories you must already love to hear before bed. I keep your love in my heart, waiting for the day I can tell you in person how much you are loved." Rachel held Sarah's hand, silent tears running down her face. "I never imagined I could have this," she whispered. "Not just having Emma back in my life but a whole family." Thomas watched the scene with a heart overflowing with gratitude. The initial fear of losing everything had transformed into an unexpected gift. A family that had grown beyond conventional limits, united by a love that knew no boundaries. Emma grabbed her new family album, the special gift she had created over the last few weeks. On the colorful pages, photographs told the story of her last year. Pancake mornings with Sarah, reading afternoons with Rachel, bike rides with Thomas. Each picture was a testament to the love that had turned secrets into blessings. "Did you know I'm the luckiest girl in the world?" Emma declared, her smile lighting up the whole bookstore. "I have two moms who love me in different and special ways, and the best dad in the universe." Sarah hugged her daughter, smelling the sweet scent of her hair. "And we're the luckiest parents to have you, my love. You taught us that family is so much more than we ever imagined." Rachel joined the hug, followed by Thomas. In the little bookstore by the sea, among books that held thousands of stories, a new story continued to be written. Not about secrets and pain, but about the transformative power of true love. The afternoon sun streamed through the bookstore's windows, painting golden shadows on the shelves. Emma blew out the candles on her cake, her eyes shining with the unique wisdom of children who understand the true meaning of love. Her wish, whispered to the wind, was already reality. A complete family united not by blood or conventions but by choices made with the heart. And so, amidst laughter and hugs, among old stories and new memories being made, Emma's family continued its journey. A journey that proved that life's greatest treasures aren't the secrets we keep, but the truths that set us free to love fully. Dear soul and history friends, this story reminds us that true love has the power to transform even the most challenging situations into opportunities for growth and connection. If you were moved by Emma's and her family's journey, leave your comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that make us believe in the power of love and understanding. Until the next story.